morning, good afternoon, and good evening, chapel. Thank you so much for joining us in this midweek encouragement. I hope your week is going on well as you even look forward to 2021. Allow me to share from the book of Romans chapter 1 from verses 18 onwards. It says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the ungodliness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible quality, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him, but their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being, and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore God gave them up in their sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. And that is the reading of today. I just want to share with us about the sovereignty of God. And the reason I chose to share with us about the sovereignty of God is that 2020 has been a very challenging year. We've gone through a lot of things. And just to remind us that even in the midst of the storm, even in the midst of challenges, even in the midst of trouble, that God does not forget that we need to be pure, we need to be righteous, and we need to glorify Him alone. That we cannot say we are going through a hard time and therefore we suspend and put aside everything else that is of God and say we now focus on the problems rather that we are facing. And therefore that God is still sovereign, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what I'm going through, that He reserves the rights or the right to make the judgment and to make the judgment call. And so this morning or this afternoon or this evening, let me encourage you that whatever you're going through will come and pass, but the sovereignty of God stands still forever and ever, that heaven and earth will pass, but God will remain. And therefore everything that we do, as we think, as we deliberate, as we go through our week, where is God in our life? I'm reminded of a story that was told by a missionary who had gone to minister somewhere, who had gone for a mission, and it was a nation where they were just coming out of war and they didn't want anything to do with Christ. And so one of the days he's being handed and chased over by the armies. He wants to be killed by the order of the leader of the country. And so this man runs and he says, I can't really outrun these guys. So he sees a ditch by the road and he jumps in the ditch and he stays there. And as he's in the ditch, there's a spider starts weaving a spider web over him. And so he looks up, he's hiding there, and he's thinking, really, what is the spider web doing there? What is the spider doing there? But you see, what really saved him was the spider web. As frail and fragile as it is, when the soldiers came and looked over, they said, no, he couldn't have gone through into that ditch, and the spider web is still fresh. So let me encourage you this day that be encouraged in God. God can protect you even with a spider web, something as frail as a spider web, because He's God and He's sovereign, that He calls us to righteousness even in the midst of a storm. He does not suspend His holiness, His requirement on us to be holy and to be righteous. Look at Jesus Christ at the cross at Gethsemane. Jesus would have sinned. He would have denied God and said, no, I'm not going through this. But even at that moment, God still required of Him to be obedient. even in the midst of the turmoil that is going on, financial meltdown, businesses have been destroyed, sickness, challenges, health challenges, God still requires us to be obedient to Him, to be faithful. It's like a soldier. When Paul talks of being a servant, a bond servant in Romans chapter 1 verses 1, he says, I'm a bond servant of Christ Jesus. A bond servant does not have an option. He does or she does what the master wants. And so Christ Jesus said that I do the work of Him that sent me. And so my encouragement to you this day is, do you live like someone on a mission, like someone who has been called, knowing that the sovereignty of God can never and shall never be challenged, that even in the midst of a storm, He still remains sovereign and He still expects us to be obedient. Thank you so much with that, and be encouraged as you go on with the week. Thank you and God bless you.